Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and as you can see, it is Halloween week. And this week we will be talking about, of course, all things Halloween. And today, it being Discord Tuesday, it's kind of a grab bag, but I've been defaulting towards talking about usually gaming and gaming mechanics and things of that nature. And because this does have to deal with Halloween, I thought we'd bring up some of our favorite mechanics and then gamify some of the things that would be part and parcel of running a game, dealing with Halloween and all that nice stuff. Now, yesterday, of course, was Monster Monday, and we always segue to other things. So we talked about the history of Halloween and how it is appropriated and changed and warped over time and culture, and whether people understand it, misunderstand it, or whatever. That's just normal course of life. And what a cool thing to use for strange and bizarre and historical and significant holiday that we have coming up. So, but we want to take this and turn it into a tabletop experience. So, of course, I think one of the most important gaming mechanics is the sanity mechanic. Now, it is absolutely part of the Call of Cthulhu game line, if you're not familiar with that. But any kind of horror, any kind of fear, anything like that, definitely could use itself a sanity mechanic. And usually that mechanic involves the player characters using their mental statistics, whether it's like you're playing classic Dungeons and Dragons with intelligence or wisdom, or you have a separate sanity track of sorts, and you start to lose those. Um, Dead Man posted the Fantasy Grounds College Discord. Yeah, Eclipse Phase uses a stress mechanic. Yes, there are lots of games that will use a generalized stressor or stress mechanic. You could do the same thing if you don't want to use like randomized tables, which Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has, where you do have yourself like a very temporary or even long-term and moves up to permanent psychological harm to player characters. Omen puts in stress, courage, fortitude. Yes, I believe. Yeah, we were talking. We did a little preamble before the show started, and we were talking about Vampire the Masquerade. White Wolf uses a lot of those stressor terminologies like courage, instincts, humanity, that kind of thing. Yep, and Omen goes on to say, like, when panicked or frightened, you lose control of your character. Yes, and Dead Man says Ravenloft used the sanity system as well. It has, if you guys are not familiar with Curse of Strahd, Ravenloft and that entire line from probably back in the mid to late 80s, and then brought back into Curse of Strahd today. It uses a sanity system, and a little bit of a plug here for Critical Hit Publishing. We use a despair mechanic, which is a parallel to, is in parity to the exhaustion mechanic. So much like physical exhaustion, you have levels and you can go up and down those levels. We have a despair mechanic that does something similar to it. And based on what level you are, you can be confused or disoriented, forgetful, go catatonic, suffer hallucinations and things. And in many ways, to be honest with you, despite the fact that most of those sanity mechanisms, rolling to resist being frightened or scared or something, a lot of players would rather just get stabbed in the chest than lose control of their character. And even in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, there are conditions, and the frightened condition has certain parameters. If you are frightened of something, much like the classic dragon fear, you either have to run from your fear. If you can't run, you hide from your fear, and if you can't hide, you cower in fear. You become paralyzed by your fear, and you cannot approach or face your fears. And depending on the type of game you're running, some games are more cinematic, and so the heroes are not supposed to run from the things they're afraid of. They don't run from dragons. They're not supposed to run from ghosts or goblins and things like that. But if your players are down for um, either modifying the game they have just temporarily because we want to use the fear mechanic, or your players are willing to embrace horror and horrific themes, I think it's a great way to modulate the difficulties in the game. So you have your like physical difficulties fighting creatures and exploring things, and then you have your social encounters, and then of course you have this other layer of fear and such. Plur says, I've never been overly keen on losing control. Your players should be able to be adults and play it out properly. It's not the GM's job to drag you kicking and screaming through it all. And that's the thing, right? That's a session zero. That's guys, we're playing a horror theme. Please embrace the horrificness of the theme. There are some players that they may say they want to embrace it, but they fight it. You know what I mean? But there are mechanics, like Pelora is kind of bringing up. There are some games that have a mechanic that reinforces it, and I'm more or less, I kind of agree with P, right? Where I would rather just have people embrace the idea of playing the darn game rather than having to have mechanics that slam down on the player characters for doing what they are supposed to do. Now, there are some tropes, mind you. There's some tropey things when it comes to gaming, right? When it comes to the horror theme. For example, most, if not all, horror intellectual properties, movies, television shows, books, whatever. You're in a limited, confined location. For example, you go out to the cabin in the woods and the car breaks down, right? You're in a limited location. You're stuck in a building. You're trapped underground. Usually it's you have a limited space to move around. There's also the idea that I hate to say this, but there's evil out there and you can't just fight it. There's a killer that you can't find. There's a monster that you can't just beat it to death. Usually the player characters are well overpowered by what is attacking them. Now, of course, in a lot of horror stories, the characters are not super skilled. They don't have superpowers or what have you. They aren't magical beings. Usually they are normal mortal individuals, but we're playing role-playing games, so you have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. But even with that case, again, characters that can toss energy from their fingertips and mind control things and throw cars through buildings, possibly depending on their power level, in a horrific style or horror style game. The players should really embrace the idea of the unknown and being stalked and not knowing what's around the next corner. Because of whatever the creature is, whether it's controlling people or able to shape change or cast illusions or whatnot. Deadman also brings up that Warhammer 40k uses a morale mechanic that runs similarly. Yeah, morale mechanics, although tending to move more towards the NPC side of the table as opposed to the player side, morale mechanics are another thing where, depending on the harm that's caused or the images they see or the situation involved, the NPCs, the creatures, the monsters, or something themselves may run or cower or hide or flee from the situation. Omen says, I do have an idea. roll percentile dice, D100. 1 to 40, regain control of your character. 41 to 70, your character runs away at full speed. And 71 to 100, your character attacks the nearest object or person. And now, I'm not necessarily against that, but you could modify that up or down, much like Eclipse Phase uses a percentile system where, depending on the character's strength of personality, whatever that strength of personality may be, whether you're using intelligence or wisdom in your game, or you have some kind of separate sanity track, or a character has courage or willpower or whatever, you could have a randomized table that modifies up and down. Like, for example, in a percentile system, it could modify up and down by 10% a piece, or upwards of 10 to 30% based on what the character has, and then you just modify the number up or down to allow them to either gain control or get themselves together or whatever. And mind you, you might want to even add in some other fear-based actions and or reactions. For example, so you could, if you want to list off 20 different things that how people react when they are afraid. For example, people turn numb. Some people start screaming. Others will fall to their knees and cower. Like I said, others will just run and hide. Some will try to drag. Yeah, others will try to drag their friends away from the situation. There are those who will refuse to acknowledge what is in front of them as not being a real thing. Plur's like, I swear on roller coasters, very unrefined. Yeah, yeah. So some people may not control their vocal cords. I suppose if you want to have something a little more hilarious and or embarrassing, some people can't control their bowels. Although there are people who break out in sweats and may vomit up their most recent meal or two. Uh, yeah, some people will pound on the walls and try to scramble their way out of a location where there's trying to break a door down or something. Um, there may even be people who are just they're just thrown off by it, right? Their aim is thrown off. They have a nervous tick. Their hands start to shake. They are their limbs turn to jelly. I know during the years that I practiced martial arts that your adrenaline will start to change your timing and perceptions of things, and so you start not to be able to maybe hear people that are talking to you, and your vision starts to narrow in, and time seems to stretch. So while a simple moment may pass by, it feels like hours and such. So yeah. Zevron says, in the game Arkham Knight, Batman is forced to have hallucinations of his ultimate fear, becoming a murderer like the Joker. Near the end, he is in a never-ending fight against illusions that only ends when he kills them. Yeah, there's if you really want to go towards the uh, very deeper and darker and more psychological issues, like and facing your ultimate fears, um, almost being caught in kind of like a mental loop, of facing the thing that makes you very afraid. Now, I was going to bring that up. Delicious kidney juice. I don't think that's lemonade there, Polar. And I don't think you want to put that into your brewed tea. But I suppose to each their own. but but what Zeb is talking about, yeah. I was going to bring that up for our third pillar Thursday, but yes, you could have it's a trope when it comes to like the challenging of the fears that you have. They've done it in Batman, they've done it in Star Wars, and that kind of thing where you face your fears. Now, it's possible that also that based on the game game or the gaming system, you could reskin some things that are happening so that for like instead of just a fear mechanic, you may have a method where the PCs see the thing that they are most afraid of, and they have to confront it. So the thing they're confronting might be different for each PC and even the NPCs, even though there's only one or there's only one adversary or very few adversaries in front of them. There was a Netflix here in the States. There was a Netflix movie called Bird Box where there was an entity that you never really get to see what it is, although they do have pictures drawn of it. But anyway, the entity really doesn't attack anyone, but everyone that sees it is confronted with such a fear that they try to take their own lives. And each person seems to confront something that challenges their very reason for existence, and they attempt to, they do the first thing that they find the first thing that they can to to take their own life. So this is also have I finally gotten cataracts? Is DBJ very tiny? I am very tiny because I am trying. More likely than not, my image will freeze, and I am I'm building for the future. So I'm also broadcasting on, for those who don't know, I'm broadcasting on Twitch, YouTube, and the audio is also simulcasting through Fantasy Grounds College Discord. So you can participate in any manner you wish. Now, I haven't really pushed out the Discord part of it, but excuse me, the Twitch stream part of the show, but in order for me to build to the point where I can pop out the chat and get other methods, um, Twitch has they kind of have an award system. So the more you stream, the greater advances you get in it. So that's why I'm doing it. And so when I upgrade my computer and upgrade the software and upgrade my internet service, I will already be in a position where it benefits me. So yeah. Scott, hey, what's going on? Scott Poe says the movie with I'm going to mispronounce it. Sid Haig and Joni from Happy Days. I'm not sure where I must have said something. I'm missing the reference there. I really am. Okay. So there are in along the horror theme and the Halloween theme, I think there are some other mechanics we can have as well. For example, in a horror style system, of course, we have this. We just talked about the sanity mechanic, the fear, sanity, whatever the case may be, recovery mechanic or what have you. There's you're going to have to use probably a ton of investigation, ritual gathering of information / supplies and such, to defeat whatever it is that's out there, as opposed or solving the riddle kind of thing, where instead of just placing a big bad guy in front of the PCs and the PCs just hack at it, there may be an escalation event happening. Maybe something's coming through an evil portal, or there's some kind of plague, arcane transformative plague that's spreading throughout the region or what have you, something that cannot be stopped by hitting it with a very large stick. And so you may want to have some sort of success measurement involved in it. Hey, you need to gather the five missing pages from the ancient book, or you need to gather the six individuals who will the six witches that can undo the ritual that happens each day this year, or whatever the case may be. You need to solve the riddles, or have someone do the silly Mr. Mxixelplick or something. The evil creature must say its name backwards or see itself in a mirror, or some kind of strange um, fey. Um, wow, my brain is just not working today. Some kind of like wives' tale, sprinkle salt, burn the book kind of way to solve the situation. Um, take the ashes and dump them, on the top of the hill kind of thing, where the solving of the situation, sure, there's going to be tons of combat and running and chasing and hiding and killing things, but to truly solve the situation, maybe surviving the night or getting the person to read the book or finding a Necronomicon and performing the ritual unimpeded or something like that. Zev says, I remember seeing a game where each player had to fight their fear. The thing is, each member of the group saw the others as their fear. For one, his group was all spiders, while another saw bats. Um, Zev silly. Zev's like, sanity's overrated. Take it from me. Take the express elevator to madness and enjoy the ride. Yeah. For those who understand Call of Cthulhu, it's like yeah, it's not surviving the game. It's surviving. You want to be the last survivor, right? It's not being the fastest runner. It's just being, it's like, hey, I'm not the fastest runner, but I'm faster than you, and that's all that counts. But we've seen that in the animated, I believe it's the Justice League cartoon, right, where Superman and Wonder Woman, there's an illusion cast where Superman sees Wonder Woman as the illusion of a demon with, like, I think a long tail, no, a long tongue or a tail or something, and then Wonder Woman sees Superman as a demon, and of course Superman's heat vision looks like fire, like a fire breathing demon. So yeah, you could do the player character sees their fear in everyone else, and everyone else represents their fear, and they start running away from each other or attacking each other and trying to circumvent the illusion by first finding out there is an illusion, and then trying to wake up the others in the illusion. Such Scott Post says, DPJ, the movie I was thinking of that I thought you were talking about was the Galaxy of Terror, a B sci-fi horror flick. I don't remember Galaxy of Terror. I do not know. Oh, I mean, but I don't mind bringing up things. I always bring up television and movies and things of that nature because that's one of my other loves. Of course, Dead Man posted in the Discord the Wikipedia of Sid Haig, and I know I'm mispronouncing the hell out of that. Sounds Celtic to me. And I haven't clicked the link, but it sounds very Celtic to me. Mr. Mxixelplick, Mxixelplick, Mr. I know there's a specific way to pronounce his name, and I don't know it. what a dumb character. Anyway, but anyhow, there are other gamified things you can use to. Tesla puts mix Pitalik. Yes, mix Pitalik. And then he's gotta say his name backwards or something. Whatever. Zev says, I love the idea of a wizard trying to destabilize a city via illusion spells meant to spark fear. When you actually get past his illusions, he has no offensive spells. You could play that. Omen, listen. Me pronouncing and mispronouncing and then pronouncing correctly and then going back to mispronouncing things is a tried and true theme of this show. So yes. At least I try. Some people just mispronounce it and just don't even they don't even. So I've got a lazy stateside tongue, so I try not to fall into that. I suppose it is a catchphrase. Zev's like, the pronunciation guide made it even harder. But yeah, having a city of illusions where in a Halloween horror game that that illusions are everywhere, and that might be, well, see, that's going into third pillar. So I'm going to save that. I apologize, Zev. I'm saving that for later. But I do like the idea of having to navigate through a ton of illusions, especially if it would be kind of cool where if you believe the illusions, they're absolutely real. And if you disbelieve the illusions, they are fake. So you could have an illusionary bridge or wall or something, or an illusionary wall that someone can climb, or an illusionary bridge that someone can cross, and they walk across it. But if you disbelieve it, now you can't climb the wall or you can't cross the bridge because you fall through it, which would be kind of weird and kind of trippy, but actually kind of cool too. Also, for creatures and monsters and things, you might want to make them a lot more horrific. It may be the idea of yeah, it's like I'm stealing all Thursday's ideas. Yeah, but come on now. Listen, I'm the self-appointed third pillarist of the RPG community. You're not knocking me off my pillar yet, although you're doing a good job of it. Yeah. Scott says that's levels of illusions called for an aboleth. An aboleth could do something like that, where I can imagine something powerful like that. Yeah. It's fitting as I can never catch the stream on Thursdays. That's all right, man. Plurus says illusions are key for my one shot. They're the big twist. As much as a pulpy Halloween game can have story. Yeah, absolutely. Illusions play a great Halloween theme kind of thing, because especially with illusions, I I hear you, Zev. Tick 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 tick. Yeah, right. Um, but the illusions play a great part. Shape changing Fae, evil Fae always play a big part in having illusions. Of course, you have yourself your demonic your demonic entities speaking in the ears of innocent and not so innocent individuals who are using lies and illusions to make people believe a thing or convince them to perform certain evil acts and such. That's definitely a trope. Also, depending on the kind of monsters or creatures you want to include in the game, um, part of horror, again, is the idea that hitting it won't solve the problem, really. So having a creature that always comes back even after you kill it, or a creature that gets stronger over time as you do things to it, or that become more powerful because of the souls it takes, or the individuals that it captures, or the people cast under its spell, is also a trope as well, where it infects one person, but over time, like an invasion of the body snatchers kind of thing, or a vampire lord that draws more people under its thrall, or a ghost that drives more people insane, that it gathers a greater foothold on the world. Now, of course, with action economy, it's very difficult to have like one big bad, but you guys know me. It's the idea is to reskin the hell out of a lot of things, right? So you could have a vampire lord, and when the PCs go after the vampire lord, there are these faceless, ghostly entities, like the vampire surrounded by screaming banshees or banshee-like entities that are going after people. And of course, I'm flowing into Thursday because Zev made me do this. But and those screaming ghostly entities could not only just drive you insane, but maybe cause you to go deaf because of the screaming, or paralyze you, or make you fall into some kind of mental loop in your brain as you confront your own fears, and you have to escape the fears that are in your own head to go after the big bad. And again, um, um, uh, the fears build in, and if the bad guy may not, it might be one of those like punch him in the jaw because all they have are illusions. And that's a great way also to have like a big bad that really isn't powerful in terms of defensive wise. It's just a bunch of illusions and a bunch of tricks and things, very much like Scooby-Doo, right? You know, Raggy, you know, hey Scoob, I'm stoked. You know, Dead Man says how to pronounce um Little Plick. I'm not going to click that. But yeah, it's a YouTube thing. Okay, all right. Um, Sev, my girlfriend DM'd her first game last Sunday, Call of Cthulhu. Very interesting choice for a first game to run. uh, Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift intensifies. I am confused by that, but maybe I'm not. Hmm. Um, Also, along with horror games, usually space is limited. You've got yourself some fear. It's usually in a very limited uh, environmental space, a building, underground, trapped somewhere. Uh, Usually resources are very limited. There's a lot of darkness. Things start to break down for some reason. Power goes out. There might be uh, some other building horror that's happening on top of what's going on. So, for example, some evil is extending out there, and the sun will never rise again unless. um. Okay. I get it. I get it now. I was like, wait, what? Oh, I get the reference. Zev. Yeah, yeah, Zev, you made me do it. Um, there's also the idea that if you don't do the thing, or if you don't do the thing, or if you do the thing, something will happen that will just make things worse. Much like player characters being stuck in a power plant or like a nuclear power plant that's going to overheat, or you're in a submarine that's going to crush like a tin can when it goes down too deep, or you're in a place that's filling with water or poisonous gases or something of that nature. There's some other timetable involved that if you don't solve the thing, this other thing may happen. Another timetable are, well, innocent people getting killed, right? Family, friends, loved ones, innocent people in the neighborhood. Yeah, Omen says underwater horror has always frightened me. Yeah, usually anything that deals with like stacked horrors is usually pretty horrible. So, for example, it's already difficult to be underwater. Let's say in a uh, take anything where you have like an underwater um, scientific installation or something, or the PCs are trapped in a castle, or uh, anything of that nature. And then you start stacking other horrors in it. A place starts to flood, a place is on fire, a place starts to fill up with smoke, a storm is on the horizon. PCs are trapped in the 30 days of night, and they have 24 hours or to live before the next airplane, ship, car, passerby arrives, starship arrives to pick them up again. There's usually some kind of like timer involved in a lot of horror situations to either survive the night or get to the safe location. Um, Zombie apocalypses always do that. Get to the island, get to high ground, get to the safe location before a thing happens. Let's see. Omen says, I once wrote a story about survivors being stuck in a say, broken engine and no power cruise ship, and there's a demonic sea monster driving the people aboard insane. Yeah, well, there was a movie, Ghost Ship, too. I blast the movie if you want. I liked the movie. It was pretty wild. But yeah, having something on a ship driving people insane in a limited space is a trope, and that's really cool. If you want to gamify that, you could establish that the innocent people that are in and surrounding the PCs are like their, I'm going to say hit points, but that's not exactly what I mean. The innocent people may represent their ability to outlast the creature, right? For example, let's say there are 20 innocent people. And so the idea is that the PCs lose if all 20 people are dead. It's, and that can then, Omen says, their salvation or moral anchor. Yes, I like that, moral anchor. Ooh, um, they become their fetters, the people they are attached to. And there's even a superhero game. I can't remember the name of it, where the PCs can spend points to succeed if they fail, but then they lose. They lose um, points for their connections. It's not called connections. It's like, anyway, but you get my point, right? Where instead of having hit points, like they take physical damage, it's more or less the PCs needing to save and protect the resource that is theirs before they lose all hope. And so that might be a really great way to modulate the difficulties in the game. So sure, a PC could easily fight off the evil, but if there are 6 individuals that are trapped because of this evil thing trying to attack them, the PCs, each person, innocent person that gets killed off, is one more thing that starts to disintegrate the PC's ability to give up hope, before they give up all hope. And I think that would be pretty cool. Uh, Meat puppets. Stop it, Zeb. You're so wrong. Um, yeah, Zeb says the funny thing is people forget how dark it gets in the ocean. I didn't forget that. I kind of wrote a book about it in a cinematic environment. Huh? Wow. Anyway, Scott Poe says there's a Netflix series, 2-sentence horror stories. The episode opens with the first sentence, plays out, then reveals the punchline second sentence. Uh, you you can get some twists. I didn't 2-sentence horror stories? I never heard that. Stupid Netflix. They put out a ton of stuff, and you never know what's good or bad. And they treat their crap like it's nothing. Netflix is so annoying with that. Zev says you could also always steal from Silent Hill. The town is trapped in mist and surrounded by demons attacking the villagers for some dark secret they committed. Usually, now a lot of times in horror stories, movies, television, and whatnot, there is some evil, and if you solve the riddle, and the riddle may be uncovering a dark secret of the town, it could be prying information from the individuals that offended some kind of dark power. It could be finding the crypt of a person that was wronged. Sometimes there's the idea of people being, they're restless spirits, right? They were killed and were unable to fulfill their destinies. And so setting the spirits to rest may be a thing, much like evil spirits attacking a town until the PCs actually arrest and persecute the person that caused the deaths of the wild spirits to begin with, right? That is a thing where it's not necessarily attacking the evil spirits, that's the point, but it is solving the riddle. And for me, that's the greatest way to put riddles and puzzles into a game, as opposed to having a locked door. I'm not very much into locked doors. You guys know that. You guys very much know that I'm that I am not into having locked doors at all. And a locked door to me is not being able to progress the story forward if you don't solve the riddle or the puzzle. Whereas in a lot of horror stories, the story keeps moving ahead. It's just the people involved, the protagonists, are little by little gaining information. They're uncovering. It's like an investigation while they run and gun, and then they go, oh, did you notice that the demon backed off when so and so and so and so happened? Or did every time we were around Dr. So and so, the demon attacks us. Maybe the doctor did something. I would blame him, that kind of thing. Omen says, uh, uh, Death Watch, to be specific, because Space Marines are pretty invincible, but dead civilians can still weigh heavily to them. At least the more moral Astartes. But yes, you could. Again, I'm just trying to come up with different ways to gamify like fear and stress and trauma. So you could both have characters that are like a Space Marines kind of thing, where they're the badass individuals, but they've literally failed if everyone dies. And so each person that dies could represent a type of stress point or hit point that means that they failed their mission. Because if maybe the mission, maybe they can't leave. Let's say the PCs land on a planet, or the PCs are in a modern setting and they go into a building, or they're in an ancient setting and they have to get the innocents and the nobles out of the castle. But if everyone dies, the ship or whatever mechanism it is for them to escape will not come for them. Oh, you didn't get any of the innocents out? Well, you were supposed to be sent in there as a suicide mission anyway, so we're not going to come and get you. What the evil thing has overrun the island? Too bad. So I'm not sure practically how it would work, but I like the idea of doing that. Tesla Ranger says, I began tucking him into bed. He tells me, Daddy, check for monsters under my bed. I look underneath for his amusement and see him and another him and another bed staring back at me, quivering and whispering, Daddy, there's somebody on my bed. That's a weird, I love that. That's a weird, strange, odd. I'm liking that. I'm liking the mental image I'm getting of that. I love that so much. Yep. What about being stuck in a dead spaceship? Yep. That's for Future Friday. Definitely for Future Friday. You got to have your what's the trope? The empty, lifeless space station with the call for help emergency signal that a intrepid group of explorers finds on their way in the middle of some uncharted region of space, and they're the only ones that are there. Yep. Yep. Is it a trope? It's trope without the question mark. Hell yeah. Yep. Alien and Aliens actually counts for that as well. Yeah, of course. Of course. Um, Zev says, Zev's, you're making fun of me. Zev says, the rogue is sad as he put away his thieves' tools. No locked doors at all? I don't mean, you're so silly. You get my point. Yeah. Yeah, Event Horizon counts. What's the movie? Sphere counts as that as well. Yeah, of course. The Abyss, the movie The Abyss counts. Zev says, perhaps the town is made of Asmodeus worshippers, and one family raised an Asimar specifically to sacrifice them. On their death day, they use the last of their celestial energy to force them to see how monstrous they become, seeing nothing but fearful illusions. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot, because you could play that different ways. For example, the Asimar might actually be the horrific thing that is haunting and brutalizing the town, and the PCs think that this evil spirit or spiritual thing is haunting the town, but come to find out that this the rage and the pain of the sacrificed Asimar is actually there because the people are worshippers of Asmodeus, or Asmodeus, as some like to pronounce it. And then the PCs discover that it's not the spirit that's the evil thing, but the people themselves, and have to bring them to justice or just murder them or whatever. PCs are 0 to 60. Let's just cut their throats and kill the wrong ones, and maybe they end up finding different clues to find out about the sacrifice, and maybe there was a a family of good that lived in this place that had nowhere else to go, and they are the ones that are feeling, maybe they don't say anything because they feel guilty because their Asimar child they should have protected was taken away from them, and they feel a guilt that really wasn't their fault to begin with, um, yeah, there's so many tropes that you can pull from. There are Let's go after some other mechanical aspects we can use for our game, much like, hmm, maybe there is a you could play with the short rest, long rest healing mechanic so that um, the player characters must scramble and strive to find a place so that they can rest and so that they can overcome the exhaustion that they're having in the first place. Um, yeah, Zeb says, I personally feel you shouldn't be able to fight things that are supposed to inspire fear. Um, and that's a tricky thing, right? Because on one hand, like 99% of all role-playing games are about fighting the big bad, right? In some form. In some form. So, but on the other hand, horror itself really tends to be a thing that you can't fight and defeat by beating it with a stick. So, on one hand, there should be a way to escape the tentacles or, um, find some kind of reprieve from the evil spirits by slamming a door shut or scrambling away from the evil goblins that are crawling over the ceiling or the rat swarm of rats that are coming after you or beetles or whatever the case may be. But it should only be a reprieve until you're able to actually solve the situation, which is why I'm a fan of an escalation mechanic, right? Pillar says you can't fight Cthulhu. Exactly. But on the other hand, you don't want to make it impossible to do a thing. You don't want to just be, it's round 3, make another sanity check. Okay, it's round 4. What do you do? Sanity check. It should be a stacked method of, if you're only trying to solve the thing in a physical manner and try to hit it, it's not going to work. But on the other hand, much like, say, a zombie apocalypse, you do have to have your physical characters fighting off the zombies. But the idea of a zombie apocalypse is you're never going to win trying to defeat them physically, right? It's we can hold them off, but eventually we're going to lose because more and more zombies are coming, more and more spirits are coming, more demons are coming through the portal, um, more people are being mind controlled, the plague is starting to spread further, darkness is sweeping through the land. If we don't do a thing, the sun will never rise again because of this evil ritual. Cthulhu will rise from the sea or come from deep space or whatever the case may be, but we can temporarily hold off Yog Sothoth or whatever the case might be, right? So it's the physicality of horror is just a stopgap to gaining more information to solve the situation. So it might be the PCs might have to go run down a corridor filled with um, jail cells filled with the dead reaching out for them, only to get there to find a computer that they have to power up or an ancient text that they have to read, and then from there they find there's an innocent family, and you understand that there's an innocent family that's trapped behind trapped in a place in the attic of a building, and they're surrounded by the undead or evil spirits or something, and the only reason that they're safe is because they're in the cathedral that's holy ground, but you as the PCs have to sneak or fight your way to get to the holy ground to find the priest who's able to translate the text. So it should be like investigation, clue, success, gaining a concoction, an object, a ritual, and not just being able to beat the evil thing about the head body with a stick. So yeah, Plur says there's fighting, swinging your sword, and then there's evading, jumping over tentacles, throwing your sword into their eye, and running. So combat, but a combat you won't win and are just trying to escape. That's exactly what I mean. Where you there should be an opportunity for that player who wants to, be the. You're going to have the barbarian. You're going to have the paladin character. You're going to have the big burly, thuggish, ruggish bone character who's just like, I'm going to sit there and hit the thing about the head and shoulders. And they should be able to do that. You want to reward that. If they're going to play a character like that, let them be the cop with the gun. Let them be the military person with the automatic weapon. And they are effective in what they're doing, right? You're rewarding their engagement in the story. Hey, I'm going to sit here while everyone runs behind me to get down to the other end of the corridor to lock the door behind them, and I'm going to sit here and try to kill all the things that are coming after us. But that won't solve the situation, right? Yeah, reminds me of Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, it's I'm going to sit here and fight while you guys run and solve the situation. The sacrificial. It's the meat puppet person, right? It's the meat shield, and you want to reward that, but you also want to reward the person who's the investigator. You want to reward the person who's the air quotes healer, whether they are playing a classic cleric or they are the psychological moral center of the group, or they are the person who knows a thing that knows a thing. They are the criminal who's trying to relive their, make amends for the wrongs they've done or something like that. So a lot of horror actually has a lot to do with personal psychological confrontation, much like Zev talked about Batman fighting their own fears. There's also the overcoming guilt, fear, depression, um, becoming the hero when they have failed in their past, overcoming their own cowardice in their old life, and admitting their love or for someone, saying sorry to someone that they couldn't. Uh, a lot of those internal monologue, soliloquy kind of things happen as well. So you could reward players with that. Um, Dungeons and Dragons has inspiration. There are games that use hero points, moxie, fate points, boons, something like that. And if your players are willing to do the hey, we have a little reprieve, let's hash out this problem that my character has with your character and have a little role-playing moment, you might want to reward the players with that as well. And that might be a way to, quote-unquote, solve the problem. As it's Plur says, I just reward XP for role-play stuff. And you know what? You can reward in-game things, right? Dungeons and Dragons has inspiration. You get an extra D20 and you get the roll and you take the best roll, right? You can add that mechanic in any game you want. Hey, roll percentile dice, you get to roll them again. Or what is it? In Eclipse Phase, you get to spend a Moxie point and flip the numbers on the percentile dice. So I roll a 91. You want to roll low, right? So I rolled a 91. I get to flip it to a 19. That kind of thing. You can add that in the game anytime you want. For any game mechanism, and you don't need particular rules. It could just be a house rule, or you could include it in this specific Halloween game to say you are not just going to confront external fears, but your own internal fears. And if you guys role play it, I will reward you. Now, if you have a good group of people, you don't need the carrot and stick. But on the other hand, if some players are not used to playing that way, or this is playing a horror game is kind of new to them, this might be you might, more carrot than stick, more honey than vinegar, maybe the thing you need. Zev says, I personally feel you shouldn't be able to fight things that are supposed to inspire fear. Like the moment you can use a sword or a gun to defeat the fear, it isn't fearful anymore. Like, how is Yog Sothoth an Eldritch Abomination and Outer God scary if you can just strike it with the Holy Avenger? Exactly. I agree with you on that one. In Dead Space, the crew were turned into necromorphs, an amalgamation of meat and bone that just wants to kill. The thing is, you can kill them, but they're already dead and mangled. They will crawl after you until you chop off their limbs. They aren't dead, but they can't chase you. Like, you can always allow your party to strike these zombies or what have you down, but they just keep getting back up with full hit points. Convey the answer isn't just smack it. I absolutely positively agree with you. And remind you, this is very specifically horror, right? The idea that you like hacking up the zombies doesn't work. Oh, I hack off its legs. Okay, it's still crawling after you. I hack off its arm. Okay, it grabs you with the other arm. I hack off its jaws so it can't bite me. Cool. Well, it's still grappling you, and you're grappled by two of them. Okay, next round there are going to be three more that are going to grab onto you. Okay, now there's like 10 of them that's going to grab on you. It's 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 escalating the dangers. So sure, they can physically fight their way out of things, and I think they should be able to do it. Tesla says use swarms, things too small to be things too small to properly fight. There's the idea of this is a common trappish trope. And this is used in video games, right? It's the respawn. There's a doorway, interdimensional doorway or something that keeps spawning more and more baddies, and so you can fight one, and you kill two, you kill seven of them. Wait, there's 15. What do you mean there's 25? I got to kill these other ones. And so and there are video games where it's the respawn, right? Now you could do the arcane or sci-fi respawn, a doorway that has yep, Zev says, or fourth edition minions. Yeah, just give everything a single hit point. You could even go simpler than that, to the extent that it doesn't even have a hit point. All you have to do is hit it to kill it. But numerically, there gets to the point where you can only kill so many before more of them overrun you, and that may be the problem. Tesla says the D&D version of the Kobayashi Maru simulation. Yep, yep. Yeah, Zev says they have all the stats of the monster but one hit point. Exactly. And that also, in a strange way, the one hit point minion rule allows you to both let the players become the heroes as well as the players being overrun, right? Because they get to look like a badass if they can kill, like, I killed 15 goblins in one hit, whereas on the other hand, if it goes from 15 goblins to 25 goblins, and then there's like 38 goblins, and then 657, you know what I mean? Like, if that's the thing, then it's like, nah, you might want to run from this, you know. Um, yeah, all the goblins. Yeah, but if you take all the goblins, what is everybody else going to do? Which is my point, right? As a dungeon master, game master, whatever, you're not going to run out of monsters, right? It's not like there's a limited. It's not like the pages are going to disappear if you use too many of them, or you use them in a different way, or you reskin them or something. So, yeah, that's a classic trope. And mind you, that classic trope doesn't need to be arcane or science fiction. Like, it doesn't have to be a wormhole. It doesn't have to be an interdimensional door. It could be something was broken open in the deep undersea realm, and these fist-sized squids that are very dangerous, or piranha, or crabs, or whatever, lampreys or something, are coming out of this deep dark region of the undersea, and they're just attacking everyone, and there's more and more and more and more of them, and the only way to stop it is to use explosives to collapse the opening from this cave, or open up the oil tankers or something and set the oil on fire, or release a poisonous gas, or open up the radiation tank, a chamber in the nuclear submarine or whatever the case might be, right? I'm just pulling stuff out of my ass. Pillar-ist says, that's why I mentioned specificity earlier. A horde of goblins is insurmountable. 57 goblins feels like you have a chance, since the GM bothered making it a certain amount. And who's counting goblins anyway? Yes, 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 yes. The lastly, I will say that. Lastly, I will say that I will say that the uncertainty of gaming is in and of itself a good mechanic to use. So not giving out certain numbers, leaving things in the dark, leaving things unsaid. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. And we will be here tomorrow. Thank you very much. I've got to head off to work. So thank you all. Have a great one.